Hello, everyone. I hope you had a good week, or rather, you're still having a good week. I doubt there are people who are new to the session, but just in case there is someone who's not from Cybershuja, my name is Hope Nduta, and I usually host you guys for these sessions. So, like I said, I hope we all had a good week. So we'll just go on and start. Today's topic is something we've all encountered, whether it's just that you've been in the IT space, whether you've been in general tech, whether actually you're transitioning from any different area, we all have come across networking. It's it's inevitable at some point. So I won't go much into what the topic is about because that's what our speaker will be talking about. But I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker today and then we can start off. Just a minute.
Thing in a song that implies that you're
Okay, so our speaker today is called Maureen Gate. Excuse me. She is an accomplished ICT security expert who excels at safeguarding digital assets and executing strategic security initiatives that are aligned with business and maintaining regulatory compliance. She is proficient in conducting risk assessments, identifying vulnerabilities, and implementing robust controls to mitigate risks and safeguard critical assets against cyber threats. So Maureen is currently the ICT security manager at Kingdom Bank, where she is responsible for providing the overall ICT security assurance in the realization of the bank's vision and business objectives. She holds a Master's of Science in Information System Security and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. She holds various professional certificates, which include the CISO, CEH, CHFI, ISO or IEC 27001, 2022 Lead Manager, among others. She's passionate about sharing her experience through mentorship and championing an equitable workforce. So I don't know if you guys are excited, but I'm quite excited to get to know more about Maureen, what she does on a day-to-day basis, what she has to say about networking and the trends in general, and hopefully she can guide into a career in that path. So Maureen, karibu sana. I won't say feel at home, but just feel welcomed into the session. And yeah, on to you now.
Thank you. Thank you, Hope, and the whole Cyber Shuja team for having me. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are, and we can see you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am very happy to be here. Thank you for extending the invite, and thank you all for making time. Maybe just as I share my screen, I would quickly want to get some expectations so that we see how to go with the conversation. So maybe if you can quickly type on the chat. Do I have access to the chat? Yes, or maybe raise your hand or unmute, or just maybe one or two people to just give what's the expectation, and then now we can move from there. Anyone?
Yeah, hands better go up or I'll pick randomly. Yes, Martin.
Hi, hope everyone is okay. So my question is the kind of threats that banks face commonly. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Yes, George. I've seen one for threats. Yes, George.
Hello, Maureen. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My expectation is I would wish to know how your day-to-day work looks like how your day's activity, what shape they take, or what kind of things you're involved in from day to day. What's your work basically? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, then the final one, Alex.
Yes, hello, everyone. Yes, my on this meeting, I just need to know about security networking, how you can secure a network to avoid being hacked with other hackers. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those hands, and thank you for sharing your expectations. I think I have a rough idea of what we can talk about. I will go straight into sharing my slides, but also just to encourage you to maybe type the questions on the chat, and then we will try answer them at the very end, and then we can also assess if we've met some of the expectations that you had. Give me a second. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
It's visible.
Okay, thank you. So our conversation is around network security. I wanted to go through it by doing some basic definitions. Then we can talk about some of the threats. I think there was an expectation to say what are some of the threats maybe the banks are experiencing. I would like to expand that to the industry across so that I am not biased to the financial organizations. And then we'll look at one of the strategies of defending a network. I think also that was also another expectation that we talk about how do we secure a network from attackers or from the common threats that we'll establish. Then I would also want to just high level touch on some of the trends we are seeing, especially with regards to network security and how it's evolving. Then we can finalize with a Q&A at the very end. So to start us with, I know you've gone through various sections of the training, but network security is actually a component of the overall cybersecurity. And cybersecurity, as we all know, it's a wide field. It has various sections, but each of them is focused in addressing different aspects of protecting a digital system or a network or data for that matter. And so the very principles that we use to protect applications, we have the overall cybersecurity principles, right? Things like maintaining confidentiality, maintaining integrity, maintaining availability. Those are the guiding principles of cybersecurity. You will find that those three will always come handy when you're talking about network security, IoT security, application security, whichever form. You'll always think, is this information being shared with the person who is supposed to see it? That means, are we achieving confidentiality? Is this information being delivered in the form that it was supposed to be delivered? That means no one has tampered with its original form. That's around integrity. Then is it available whenever needed? Well, if it's data, if it's an application, is it available? If it's So when you're thinking around all these fields of cybersecurity, we have to have all these principles. We have to keep going back to them so that we can maybe finally say that we are attempting to achieve some form of security. But to what we are discussing today, it's around network security. So as we've said, we are protecting the integrity, the confidentiality and availability of data and resources within a network. And a network could mean interconnection of devices. So we want to protect them from unauthorized access, from misuse, and from even unavailability. That means you want to access a particular resource and you can't get to it. But then even as we think around those three concepts that I've mentioned, sometimes we tend to think about it more on the technical side. We want to think about what controls to put in place. We want to think about what technologies, what tactics, but also something that is of key importance is putting up policies and procedures. So it's not biased to controls and technologies alone. When you're thinking about safeguarding any network infrastructure, you also have to think about what policies are there and what procedures are there specifically to even help the users, because we are protecting something that a user is interacting with. So we have to put on a governance level, we have to think about how do we put a control, and that control could be in form of a policy or a procedure. So it's not all technical controls. We also have to think around things like this so that we achieve the overall security as of the network. I know we have also come across the OSI layer. So it's just a logical concept that tells you on what happens on each layer. So we have the physical layer where there are cables, then we have data link layer where we have all these MAC addresses, and then a network layer, we have routers and transport going up all the way to application. So when we talk about network security, sometimes you might think we just want to secure layer 3, which is here. Layer 3 is where we have IPs, we have routing traffic and all that. But when you're talking about network security, especially in an organization, you're thinking about every unit that is involved in processing a particular resource, that could be data, and how we have to ensure that it's safety. So the discussion doesn't have to just end at, how do we configure switches securely? How do we configure routers securely? Probably how do we ensure wireless, which is part of what we have to do. But network security governs the whole layers. You're going to see when we are talking about the defense in depth, is about the whole architecture of the organization. I don't know if this is a good place to pause and ask, maybe what are some of the threats that you are aware of that could actually compromise a network? Anyone? So that I also don't talk alone. Just one person. What threat or what vulnerability you can give either that would actually compromise a network? Yes, Martin.
I would say some ports on a network can be vulnerable, can be an entry point.
Yes. So that could be a weakness if you leave maybe some default ports that are not properly configured. That could actually be an entry point. So that's a vulnerability. How about a threat? What could materialize from such a vulnerability, or from any other? Doesn't have to be that. I think Sydney.
Could you say a phishing attack or a denial of service?
Yes, yes, yes. All those are correct answers. All those could actually materialize from that. And I think that's what I want to talk about next. These are just some of the common, I think, common, that there are many, but then I want to talk about denial of service. Who can tell us what denial of service is? Yes, Valerie. I don't know if it's a new hand or an older hand. But basically, these are some of what I think in the recent. Yes, yes, Leslie.
Oh, you had asked what DDoS is.
Yes, yes, yes.
From my own understanding, I think DDoS is just like sending bots to a certain network or certain IP addresses. So because of the high number of bots being sent to the network, then it slows down traffic, and then which makes it hard even at the time of looking for the source of the source bots being sent. Someone can't specifically separate legitimate traffic from traffic that is compromising. So that's what I understand by DDoS.
Okay, yeah, that's thank you for that. And also, just anyone, as you think about a DDoS, what a security principle would it compromise? Yes, you can unmute. Prince?
Yeah, it compromises the availability because now the service is not available to the people seeking it.
Okay, okay, yeah, correct. Thank you. And I think we've also seen a lot of that. We've seen sometimes when you're trying to access a resource, but we are not able to access them. Some of the threats that have materialized, we've seen sometimes we're trying to access a critical resource, we are told it's down, it's because of a DOS or a DDoS. And then we've also seen recently also cases of ransomware. Anyone who would also want to tell us about ransomware?
Maureen, I can help you with the hands.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So basically ransomware, it's whereby whether the data or the network is compromised, and the attackers encrypt the data or the network, and they demand a ransom for them to give you the decryption key.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's correct. I think we've also experienced a bit of that. So where your network is your network is compromised. Sorry for that. Your network is compromised, and then someone asks for ransom, or now they threaten to leak the data. There is a cost implication around it, and also sometimes even significant financial losses. We've also experienced zero-day exploits. Anyone who can tell us and maybe give an example of if they know of any?
Sydney?
In my understanding,
Yeah.
A zero-day attack is a type of attack that is new to the organization, despite the fact that you've put measures in place to like prevent, an attack.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. An example?
An example would be like there was a time. I'll give an example of SolarWinds
Yeah.
when they were attacked. Their network was attacked, and they were responsible for a lot of organizational, a lot of data from other organizations, and they didn't expect that attack because the attackers were able to, to leave a backdoor and for them to be able to get in and out of the network. And as soon as they realized every other company, as soon as they updated their systems, they were attacked.
Sorry about that. Just a minute. You can go ahead. Sydney, I think you were speaking.
Oh yeah, I've finished. I said an example was the one for SolarWinds, where
Okay,
their network was attacked.
Yeah.
Without them knowing.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Sydney, thank you for that example. Most times 0-day are, for example, for, let's say, applications that are released or systems that we are using, but then even the source or the manufacturer are not aware of a certain vulnerability that exists in a software that they have released. So then someone else discovers it, and sometimes they are exploited. So I think that was the example that you're given, and I think that's common. So sometimes even when we have all these mechanisms to defend our environments or our networks, some of the things that still catch up with us are some things like 0-day exploits. And then we also have insider threats and supply chain attacks. So insider threats basically are threats that emanate from the internal of an organization. So for example, maybe a disgruntled employee or someone who has access to something they don't have access to. And then now they are able either to move, and if it's a malware, they can maybe plug it in to a machine internally, and then now the attack can actually spread. And then finally is a supply chain attack. Anyone would want to give it a try? What a supply chain attack is, maybe with an example. Yes, Alex?
Yes, from my understanding from supply chain attack,
Yeah.
this is an attack by an attacker accessing the source code, and inserting there some malicious code so that he can use that as entry points to that application.
Okay, someone else maybe? Caleb? Yes, Caleb.
I would say a supply chain attack is like when Dell's customer service portal was compromised, exposing the data for its customers. That's what I would say.
Okay, that's an example. Okay, I wanted to still get some answers around what it is. Yes, Peter?
Can I try?
Yes, try.
Okay, so my name is Collins. I would say a supply chain attack is whereby, let's say I buy networking devices from a supplier, and they're not correctly configured, or they have some malfunctions, and I use them to connect, make a network connection in my enterprise or a company. And then some vulnerabilities arise from the router that I bought from someone, and they get to infiltrate into my network. That's my understanding of the supply chain attack. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, Leslie.
Let me try. I think a supply chain attack is when an attacker uses either, I think it's by previous speaker, but either a third-party software within the network, or a third-party tool within the organization, and exploits its weakest, or if it has a vulnerability, exploits that vulnerability to be able to access the rest of the networks. Not ideally a device, but the service or tool that is there. So for example, if you have a device within your network, for example, like an Ubiquiti device, and like, for example, was it 4 or 5 years ago, where they were able to exploit and get into networks through the management platform, so called Ubiquiti Network Management System. So they were able to do that because it's a third-party software that is used by the people who use Ubiquiti tools and devices to give, whether it's internet, whether it's connecting two places at the same time, like that. So that's what I think supply chain attack is.
Okay, I think, thank you very much. I think that's the concept I was looking for, is the third party concept, that the risk emanates, or the attack emanates from a third party, and then from that weakness, because you have the system or the device in your environment, then using that, they are able now to compromise you as well. So it becomes like a ripple effect from their weakness over that party to actually your environment, which I think now we are seeing also a lot of such attacks happening. That's why I think everyone is a bit more cautious around that party risk assessment, just to see what type of risk does a vendor introduce to your environment. And it's a bit tedious. Of course, it gives headache, because now some of the things you don't have control. You don't have control when a patch will be released. Sorry, you don't have control on, some of the other organization way of running things, or how they are even keeping their own environment secure. So I think that introduces a challenge to your own environment. Okay, thank you very much for those answers. And then I think one of the things I wanted to look into is, then how do we defend? So we are seeing all these ways of compromising a network. We've all seen what a network looks like, ways through which it could be compromised. Then how do we defend it? What strategies do we put in place so that we ensure that our environments are actually secure? And one of the strategies that is actually this one we want to talk about, which is defense in depth. So defense in depth, sorry, my diagram I know looks a bit crowded. Defense in depth means that you have various layers in your environment, and you want to ensure you are applying security measures on each layer, so that you protect the entire infrastructure. So you don't just have one circle, protecting one important asset, which is in your organization, but you want to have layers, so that in case one layer is compromised, then you have another layer of security just under it. I think the best illustration when we are talking about defense in depth is usually a bulb onion. So the way you pull one layer, there's another layer, there's another layer, there's another layer before you get to the very tiny bit of the onion. And this I think is one of the ways that one of the strategies that that I see working, because as we are aware by now, we cannot be 100% secure. We have to keep improving. We have to keep checking for new threats that are actually coming up and finding ways on how to defend our organizations. So I'll quickly go through them as I also try. You can also ask questions or raise a hand. Then we can go from there. And from the very outer layer, I think we always talk about not even the perimeter security. Before we are even talking about perimeter, there's always the physical layer where you're talking about, do you have cameras? Do you have biometrics on your doors? Do you have a way to deter a threat physically? Is your data center well locked? Is it in a secure environment? Is it safe from flooding? All those factors. Now that forms the most outer layer, which is the physical layer. Then now we can look around the perimeter. I think a lot of times we refer to it as the edge. So on the perimeter, this is most exposed to the internet. So you're thinking about what are some of the controls you can deploy on that particular completely outer layer. Maybe just to give an idea of some of them, we talk about firewalls. Anyone would want to tell us the work of a firewall in this particular layer? And I'm showing you my screen. Yes, Job?
They filter ingress and outgress, egress and outgress traffic into a network.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, that means you're filtering traffic that is coming in and traffic that is leaving, that is coming from your organization, leaving to the outside. And as you are going to see, there are various type of firewalls. There are web application firewalls that are actually deployed to protect the applications that are now facing the internet. We have perimeter firewalls that just do the work of allowing incoming and outgoing and providing security at that level. Then we have a DMZ. A DMZ acts like a separation. It's like a fence between whatever is outside and whatever is inside. So you create this DMZ so that you place your applications there. And when they're there, you're limiting the potential damage of an external breach. So they can either be in a DMZ, most of your external facing applications, or you can even have them behind a WAF. So that means any traffic that is coming to it, external application is first passing a web application firewall. Then we also have intrusion detection systems, intrusion detection and prevention. You could have a solution that actually comes with both technologies together. So this one will actually prevent, and it will first detect if there is an intruder. So if there is someone new or someone you're not aware of, or someone that your network knows this is not our IP, this is not someone who interacts with the environment, then they can actually detect and notify. But also sometimes the capability of preventing, where they can hold or quarantine, for example. I think that would explain, like hold for a moment before allowing any further interaction or any further connections to your internal network. Are there any other solutions you think would come in at the perimeter level that you know of? Are there any other solutions you think around that would also work on the perimeter? Yes, Job? Okay. I think we are also seeing things like load balancers moving to this level, like the ADCs. We have WAPs that are also just on this layer. Then we can talk also about network segmentation. So this is where you don't have a flat network, for example. You have your network segmented in various levels just to allow isolation and also so that your network, all your critical assets are not just accessible from one pool. You have them on different virtual local area networks, which we commonly call them VLANs. And also something else we could do around this layer would be going for network access controls. So this is used basically to just ensure there is authentication and only compliant devices can connect to your network at this point. I think something else that is always a challenge when you're thinking around network security is around who is connecting to your environment. Now we have users working from home, we have vendors joining your environment, we have people who are not in your traditional network connecting to them. So how do you ensure that that you're securing yourself but still allowing, for example, someone to work from home? How do you authenticate them? How do you ensure a vendor who is having a machine that is not from your organization connect to your environment? How do you ensure that their device is actually compliant, or it doesn't have, viruses that once they plug in, or malwares once they plug in, it will spread across your environment? So one way is to actually have access control, network access controls, so that first of all, it will either identify the type of devices that are joining your network, but also check for compliance, check if they are, check what they can even access to actually. Then another level would be now the internal network layer, where you can do more microsegmentations. So for example, one department is maybe in an entire different VLAN, or a particular maybe server plan. So for example, your test environment is different from your production environment, and they are micro-segmented. And then something else would be internal firewalls. So we talked about the external firewall that's sitting on your perimeter. That's the edge firewall. But then now at this point, we are thinking around, what about the devices that are communicating with each other? A VLAN communicating to another VLAN, a user accessing a server. At that, trying to actually ensure that you can see the traffic that is going in and out of these two, client and server, but also ensuring that it's secure, because sometimes you could have a user's device that's compromised. And if it goes to the server, then the compromise is actually a bit more huge. Then there is also endpoint security. This is where you ensure that the devices of the users are protected. So they have things like anti-malware, they have host-based firewalls for some of the servers, endpoint detection and response solutions are in place, all those things, so that in case, actually something else around microsegmentation is to also help mitigate the issue of lateral movement. So where you have someone in a guest network moving all the way to a VLAN that has critical assets. Then something else that we can consider is ensuring there's access controls, and this is achieved by using identity and access management. So there are solutions that help with managing identity. As I've told you, now we are seeing a lot of, because technology is evolving, so we have a lot of workers or people connecting to an organization, but they are not in the office physically, to be authenticated probably maybe by an AD or by an Active Directory. We have someone connecting or working from home, and you need to identify them and ensure that actually it's your device or it's your user who is connecting to your environment. And then there's also giving least privilege, using the least privilege principle, where you're ensuring that your users or your systems, they actually have the most minimum access to perform their functions. So if a user is just connecting to a server, this particular server for their role, then you're giving them access to that server alone. They are not moving around. And that now helps you manage their access, or also mitigate in case their device is compromised or they are actually the disgruntled employee we were talking about, that you're mitigating the impact of an attack that would emanate from such a user. Then there's also the issue of data protection. Remember, we're talking about the network security as a whole. So the data protection is also key here, ensuring that there is encryption, that sensitive data is not being leaked, or even information is not just leaving the organization without a control. So this can also be done or achieved by use of DLP solutions that will help you monitor and control the movement of sensitive data within, that is data that you have installed within or even outside the network, and prevent breaches. Then the last two are around monitoring detection and incident response. So then what happens if your network has been breached? Is there a way for you to do log analysis? Is there a system that is collecting for you logs that you can actually go and analyze and correlate and now make sense of? This is where this traffic is actually coming from. This is what it is trying to access. And this is actually the potential threat that it carries with. So you can do that by use of a SIM tool, or even network traffic analysis, or even analyzing packets, just to tell what has come in, and can we make sense of it. That goes hand in hand with incident response and ensuring there's a SOC in place, so that you continually have visibility over traffic coming in your network and leaving. And in case there is an alert, or in case there is a threat, you can actually see it before it materializes and actually now begin your response activities. Are there any questions regarding the defense in depth? Okay. So I think as we conclude, I think I would also want to just talk about what are some of the trends that we are seeing or experiencing around network security. One is more on zero trust architecture. So the concept is you trust but you verify. So you're ensuring that you have strict measures in place to verify the identity of every person or even a device that is attempting to access a resource in your environment. So beyond just bringing in your machine, we want to assume we don't know you, but then we have an architecture that allows us to verify who you are and what you're trying to access, regardless of where you are. So this one comes around replacing the traditional VPNs that would connect to the environment. So regardless of your location, you can connect and we can identify and verify you're actually a user in our environment, and therefore you can access some of the resources. Then we also have use of SASE, which is basically secure access service edge. I think this is something else we are seeing commonly now coming up or being introduced. So where you're bringing all the functions together, all the functions that a web gateway would do, what a firewall would do, and bringing them like in a single mode of delivery, mostly being delivered through a cloud model. So it will provide security and networking capabilities to support environments that probably are now, you will find a lot of environments are not only on premise, you have the cloud factor in place. So then you have one pane that is using SASE just to manage both your network security. Then, of course, we have the buzzwords that we are all talking about, the use of AI and machine learning to analyze models, to analyze traffic, incoming traffic for like if your organization is receiving a lot of traffic and you're not able to make sense of it, then now you can use some of these technologies to help you make sense of it. We are seeing even a lot of some of those tools we were talking about for defense in depth now coming in with an AI module with them. So you will see an IDPS that has an AI capability that once it's deployed in your environment, it learns your environment. It's able to tell who is a normal user from a new user. It's able to tell your normal day traffic consumption from a weekend or from a holiday. So then if there is an anomaly detected from all these thresholds or from all these learnings, then now it can alert you. So we are seeing a lot of security controls or vendors coming up with modules of training or training models that are actually now enhancing security better. Then we have the use even of XDR. I know we talked about EDR. Now it's being moved to an XDR, sorry. So it will fetch data from various data sources, and then it will allow things like threat detection, response. So in case it sees a particular user is having, other than just notifying you that this user has a malware present in their device, they can actually kickstart the response capabilities. I think those are some of the trends I wanted to talk about. And also discuss around network security in general. I would want to open up for the QA or for any comments. Maybe Hope you can help me.
Yeah.
Hello.
So just a minute, whoever's mic is on. So thank you so much for that, Maureen. I'd kindly request if you can delve into the ones on the chat. There were questions on the QA first, then we can give the opportunity to the hands later on.
Okay.
Do you have access to the QA part?
Yes, now that's what I was trying to get to. I think there was one question. How can a person new in tech delve into this field and how to get a mentor too? Okay. I think you just start. That's what I would say. If you're new in tech, so you would want probably to move or transition from an untechnical background to a technical background. I think some formal training would help. So maybe probably joining Cyber Shujaa. Yeah. And also just reaching out. I think having a mentor is really key because the mentor aspect is where you have someone else modeling for you what it looks like to be in the field. So they will help you navigate or avoid some of the troubles. But I would say if you're new in tech and you're delving into security, I am assuming that's the question. I would say look for opportunities for a formal training. Then get the basics right. Get simple concepts like networking, computer systems. Get those basics, understand them well. Then now you can see how to navigate to a field that interests you. And then I think the next question was, how are banks dealing with zero trust network architecture since the traditional perimeter security is no longer ideal for is no longer an ideal security posture? Yeah, it's true. As you're seeing, a lot of people are now working from home. They're remote workers or different people connecting. I will avoid speaking for all banks, but I would say in general, the zero trust network architecture, I think it's a new area, and as all new areas as they come in to the industry, I think the first few things you do is to assess where you are as an organization, and how now this technology enables you, or how does it solve the particular problem you have. So if it's probably you, and every environment, I think it's quite unique. So, but basically the problem is the traditional way is not working anymore. So you could go the way of getting a solution, although it's not always, doesn't solve it. Although you have to think of it, you have to think around it as an architecture rather than just a solution being deployed, of how you verify or how you authenticate or identify your legitimate users. So for that, for ZTNA, I would say it is varied depending with the problem each organization is trying to resolve. Yeah, and sometimes a solution will come in, but you have to assess, does it meet your need? Does it meet the requirement that you're trying to resolve? Then I think there's another one. Please share on the technology you use day to day. If you could break down which observability and monitoring tools, network monitoring tools and cloud platforms, to help us get an idea of what are the latest tools we need to get conversant with. Okay, so some of those tools we've actually are some of what I was going through on the defense in depth conversation. I would say there are things around EDRs, protecting the endpoint, protecting the perimeter. We have firewalls, we have IDPSs, we have DLP solutions, we have the IAMs, the identity and access management solutions. Yeah, all those solutions. Then there is kindly share a way to reach you, and these slides for future references. Okay, I think I will allow Hope. I will share the slide deck with Hope and also my email. Okay, I don't know, Hope, if there are more that I can't get to.
So I see a latest one from Brian. Are you as you were being introduced, I heard you did computer science, so you're probably good at coding. My question is, for one to be a security manager, how good should one be in coding? Is coding a vital whatever part of your work?
Okay, so yes, as I began, I think I would say I began, of course, trying to do some software development. Then I realized it wasn't okay, I think the correct word would say I was not enjoying it very, very much. Then I later on transitioned to networks, setting up networks for different organizations. And then I later on now came into security. I think that's now where network and security come in. Yes, coding is an important skill because you need to understand. You need to understand. You need to see a bug in a code when you're doing software reviews and actually identify it. So it's a good field to be in. I'm trying to remember if the question was, if it's something, I don't do it actively right now, but I think where I use some of the little skills I gained during software development is actually when we are doing code reviews for applications, or when you're trying to do like application security. So you basically have to look through its code and ensure that, or see if you can get some bugs. So it's a good skill to have. It's a good skill to even develop. Yeah, and then you can see if your interest then is in security, you can see how you marry the two.
Okay. Then I thought I'd seen. Okay, we can give those who'd raised their hands a chance. I feel like the moment we tackle, more appear. Collins?
Thank you so much. My question to Maureen is, in as much as we keep ensuring, or rather preaching the gospel of securing networks and applying, we're more on the defense side in terms of security. What about the offense side in terms of penetration testing and configurations to ensure that your networks are secure? From where you sit, how do you, or rather, what do you see the industry is lacking in? Because we keep saying secure networks, but every once in a while we have an attack somewhere. And then we again keep securing your networks, and then we hear of another attack. How about that talk or transition to, how about we do more of penetration testing and other ways of testing for vulnerabilities in networks, so that as much as we're securing, we're also testing the security principles that we are applying to. Do you feel like how do we strike a balance in that? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I would say both aspects are very key. Both aspects are very key, because how you cannot very well defend a network that you don't know its weaknesses, that you don't know its vulnerabilities. And how else will you identify vulnerabilities? You will identify vulnerabilities through penetration testing, like you're talking about, through red teaming exercises, through drills for physical security, through audits for your policies. So you cannot have one without the other. You need both of them. And as also we will continually see, it's a cycle. So you actually see the whole aspect of red teaming or penetration testing is so that you can help the organization see what are their weaknesses, or if a threat or an attack was to actually materialize, what that would look like for them. So once they are aware of that, then they know what to protect. Remember even the question around ZTNA or what solutions to put in place. I think the approach doesn't just come by you thinking, okay, today this organization doesn't have an IDPS. We are going to buy an IDPS. You have to look at what are you protecting, what vulnerability, and each organization is unique. So you realize some applications have applications on the internet, a lot of them facing the internet. Some organization, a lot of their applications are internally accessed. So that means their biggest threat is internal. And the only way we can actually identify some of this is through continuous testing, continuous audits, continuous red teaming exercises, just to ensure that you know what the problem is. So you just don't deploy a solution. You deploy it from a need. I think that's what I would say.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll have two last ones, and then because we are beyond time, so Daniel and then Helena as the last one.
Okay. Hi. Thank you. Hi, Maureen. I had a question, just a follow-up on the tool section. I think the thrust of my question was, I wanted to know, like, how do you approach deciding which tools to implement in the bank? For example, if you could speak something on the budget side, like the CapEx, OpEx, or more of the business side, like we don't really know that process as students. Maybe you could help us from that side of how do you guys go about analyzing that and make a decision how to solutions to implement and so on and so forth. And then also just the tools, like what is hot on the market, so that we can, should we go for Cisco, Fortinet, or so on and so forth? That would help us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for the question. So I think as it's evident, there are a lot of solutions. I think even when we're talking about the defense in depth, there are a lot of solutions. Now, those solutions, of course, have a budget implication. And a budget discussion is always where you have to go back to the business and put your need, or say, we need this solution because this is the threat. When I'm talking about the need, I think for this particular scenario we're talking about, the threat that you're facing. So one of the ways I've seen that works well is to quantify your need. Quantify it in terms of money. So say, for example, application X. If application X goes down for, let's say, 1 hour, maybe this is one of your critical applications, we will lose X amount of money. If application X is down for whatever reason for this amount of time, we will lose this one. Now, when you have such a structured way, or when you're speaking in a way that you're not just thinking about the vulnerability, but you've also quantified it to what financial loss it represents, then that helps going around the conversation of budgeting. But also, I think the best way is look through your need, I would say. Look at what you're trying to protect once again, and just then prioritize, have a strategy. I think also that works, so that you're not going to an organization and saying, we are spending X amount of millions within this year just on this solution. You need to also do a budgeting. You need to have them planned so that you have a goal to achieve. Maybe, for example, by 2028, we have a 3-year plan. This is the roadwork as an organization we are going to walk. So you'll say, for example, in this year, we are going to focus on maybe solution X, and this is because our crown jewels, or our most critical sources or most critical applications are actually within facing the highest risk. And then you draw a roadmap, because also I think you just can't have all of them implemented within the same time. You need to train users, you need them to accept, you also need finances, you need budgets to be approved and all that. So I think also that helps, having a strategy, saying that we'll achieve this one in the first year, we'll do this one in the second year, on the third year we'll focus on this thing. And all of that, it will always go back to what's your critical assets, what's your need. Yeah, and then on the solution, I think I cannot really tell you use Fortinet, use Cisco. yeah, I think when you're choosing which vendor to go with, you also have to do tests with them. You have to do proof of concepts, for example. Call a Cisco vendor, say we are looking for your firewall, and call a Fortinet vendor, say we also want a firewall. Then have them go through each of those solutions and see which best actually fits your organization. So for organization X, because it's a small medium enterprise, so vendor Y will work perfectly, but an organization Z that is a multi-million, enterprise that has a lot of complexity in terms of their infrastructure and the way their network lies, will not go for the same vendor. So when you're choosing a vendor, I think you don't just go with the buzz of everyone is using this solution, everyone is using Cisco, you have to also consider what are your needs. And also now even the costing, because various vendor will cost it differently. And also if you can have vendor A who is putting maybe a lot of capabilities in one solution vis-a-vis vendor B who is just giving you one functionality. All those are things that will go around when you're trying to settle with vendor X than vendor Z. I think, any other question?
So Helena, as our last question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Helena. Yes, I can.
Okay, so my question is about you being in the industry. How much is cybersecurity appreciated here in Kenya, to be more specific? And then also, how easy is it to secure a cybersecurity entry role?
Okay, so I think right now, most organizations, as long as they are talking about using technology for whatever it is, they will definitely have to think about security somehow. So even if it's just a small business who has a POS, for example, just for accounts, you will always hear them asking, how do we secure the server that is storing all this data for us? So I think it's a need. It's not even, it's a need almost for cybersecurity, or for any business or organization that is using technology to have security. Maybe it is not talked about as much in maybe some instances, but I can tell you that where we are going, because of all this, the way technology is evolving, the way the industry is changing, we will need the skill, and we'll need people who understand how to secure environments. So I would say it is a good field to venture into. It's very, I would say, dynamic. Of course, it evolves as the technology evolves, but it's an interesting space to be in at such a time. Then how easy is it to secure an entry position? I think a lot of organizations look for, maybe they sometimes look for, if you have, depending with the level of the organization, they'll either say this is an entry level. So maybe when it's an entry level, there is an expectation that there is a lower minimum requirement, or there is a lesser requirement of the number of experience. So then it's easier to go in. But I would say for example, keep publishing your work, so that it explains for some experience either way. And then once you land a role, you can actually have some skill to bring on the table. Even though a lot of it you will learn on the go, but then be proactive in doing something, so that now it also helps you to bring some value once you get such a role.
Okay. Helena, I hope your question has been answered.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So, Maureen, you can give your closing remarks, then I can bring the session to an end.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed the interactions. Thank you for asking questions. I think this is an interesting area that we can keep learning. Even for myself, I think I am constantly challenged to keep learning, keep interacting with various technologies so that I'm able to understand, I'm able to defend better or protect better. So I think one of the key takeaways for me has always been lifelong learning. Learning doesn't stop. We have to keep learning and understanding new technologies, farming up with new ideas so that now we are better equipped to advise or even bring value to the organization that we get to work with or work for. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure having you on board, and thank you for answering the call to come mentor. And even with such short notice, you still made it, you still prepared, and this was really amazing for us. And for the Cyber Shujaa participants, thank you for participating, thank you for interacting. Yeah, just an encouragement to the ladies to also, interact more. These sessions are as much yours as it is for the guys. So thank you, Maureen, for taking us through network security, for tackling the threats that are out there, the controls that we can put into place as professionals in this field. Thank you for also, I like how you brought in the business acumen of all this, how to present these risks and solutions to the board of directors, how to plan. This is still an investment for them. So how to plan this and make sure whatever solutions you're bringing on board are tailored towards the issues that your specific organization is going through. So thank you so much, Maureen, for your time, and we hope to invite you again. For the Cyber Shujaa participants, I encourage you to seek out these people on LinkedIn, the mentors that we bring on LinkedIn, via contacts that we share. Seek them out as mentors. Sometimes they may engage you and ask what you want to do in the future, and then even if they don't mentor you personally, they can connect you to an industry mentor. So make sure you seek them out. Let the session not just end at 8 or at 8:30. Maximize on this opportunity as much as you can. It's just 12 weeks, so maximize as much as you can. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely night and rest of your week. Bye.